And welcome back, friends, to another exciting month for Empires and Puzzles. And this brings us back to the State of the Game podcast. This is my favorite thing that I kind of do each month to kind of bring together an idea of what happened in the previous month, give you an idea of what's to come in the next month, so that you can properly utilize all your resources as effectively as possible to be able to succeed in this game. So if you are a fan of this, you will have already realized that we've done a few of these this year. This is going to be the fourth in the series for 2026, and of course I will do one at the beginning of every month. So what is on the agenda for today? Well, we're going to start things out with the power creep tracker. And if you're not familiar with that, I will go into that in a moment and you'll see what that's all about. Then we also have our 9th birthday review. The celebration was what I consider to be a success, but we will kind of go into that and we'll go through the whole process as well. Then we have the introduction of the Ronin family, so we will talk about that. We had a gem challenge poll, this time around for troops. First time that we've seen it for troops, so let's have a little discussion about that as well. Then we'll get back into our quality of life changes that are going on in the game. This is where I talk about both pros and cons, things that I think we could use or have gotten as part of our quality of life in our day-to-day experience. And then we'll go into meta changes so that you can be aware of what is coming and what to be on the lookout for. And finally, we will do the April calendar preview, so you have a chance to prepare for what is coming in April and be ready for it so you're not caught off guard and can utilize your gems and resources as best as possible. Okay, so without further ado, let's go ahead and get started on our first topic. Okay, so let's go ahead and jump right into our power creep tracker. Now, for those of you who are familiar with my State of the Game podcast, you'll know that I started tracking this as soon as I started this entire program. So basically what it is it's a way for us to keep track of where SG is with our current power creep. So you might say to yourself, well, what exactly is a power creep? Well, it is the mechanic that they put into this game that allows them to ensure that newer heroes are always going to end up being stronger than older heroes. This is a mechanic used in many, many games. This is not unique to Empires and Puzzles, and it is to be expected from phone games like this. As a disclaimer here, I'm not like trying to take SG's side on anything, but I will point out that this is a requirement for a phone game to continue to exist. They must remain profitable because in reality, the investors which give them the money to make sure the game continues to run expect a certain amount of return, or they would rather shut that project down and then redistribute those funds to a different project. So understand that this has happened to me before in my phone game experience, where I get into a game, I invest my time, energy, and effort, only to have them decide to shut up shop. And really, when they shut down the game, it's not like they offer you any refunds or any sort of consolation. They just say, hey, you know what? The game's ending. Sorry, bye. Like, that's basically all you get. And I would hate to see that happen for a game like Empires and Puzzles. So I understand that the power creep is necessary. I hope you can understand that too. Now, that being said, how they control the power creep is an extremely important aspect to our ability to play this game with a certain level of enjoyment. If their power creep is too fast, it's going to make our heroes that we pull significantly less important because they're going to fall off the power curve too quickly, and then it's hardly going to seem like getting new heroes was worthwhile. If they go too slow, then we're going to be able to use the same heroes for a really long time without really feeling the need or the pressure to stay relevant and continue to pull more, which is where a large part of their profit margin kicks in. So there needs to be a fine balance between the two. And really what I have landed on is I believe that should be at 10 CP a month. Or if you expand that out, 120 CP a year. This seems to be the sweet spot. And we've gone through some high periods and low periods in the CP creep in Empires and Puzzles. And I can tell you one thing, since I've been tracking this and it's been almost a year now, it seems like Empires and Puzzles has decided to sort of land in that area as well. For a while when I first started, it was higher, and they've settled that down a bit, and now we're usually landing right around 10. As you can see, in January it was 11, February was 9, this month it was 12. So a little bit higher, but we're still in a margin of error. I think 10 to 15 a month is possible, but obviously the closer to 10 we get, the better off we are. Now, they did bank a little bit of extra CP last month by putting it at 9, so even though we're over by 2 right now, we're not doing too bad for a year-to-date total of 32, where ideally we would be at 30, right? So, I mean, they're still on track, and I give them credit for trying to maintain that. Now, I also this year started tracking the number of new heroes that are released each month. And what do I consider to be a new hero? This is worth mentioning real quick as well, in case you're new here. A new hero is going to be a brand new hero that's released to the game. So I'm not counting costumes, because costumes are just reskinning an older hero, and they're always released at the same time a new hero is released anyways, so they don't have a additional bearing on the power creep, if you will. And I don't consider things that exist outside of the normal power creep. For example, the costumes for season 1. They're always released at their own sort of benchmarks. So like, even though we've seen 1,700 characters from the season 1s, and they were out a little while ago, the standard power creep right now is still at 1691. That's what I tracked it for the end of this month. So that means they haven't even reached that 1700, and our real power creep is at currently 1691. So it's pretty interesting to track this kind of thing to make sure that we are staying on track for an enjoyable game. Right now, I do believe we will likely end around that 120 mark for the year. It usually creeps up more to like the 145 range, but if we stay under 150, I think they still at least put the effort into making sure that the power creep is staying under control. And this month, although it is a little bit higher, I'll point out that we have more new heroes released. The previous months we were around 15 or 16. This month we had 19. So when you increase in additional heroes like this, usually the next hero tends to be 1 CP higher than the previous released heroes. So the additional 3 heroes that came out this month compared to last month, they snuck in that additional CP. As you can see, it's 3 higher than last month. So that would make sense, because each time one of these new heroes came out on a different day, they probably bumped it up 1 more CP. Does that make sense? The system kind of works like that. You can track this if you're paying attention to this sort of thing. But that's fine. Really, what they need to consider doing, though, is slowing down this new hero release a little bit. And I understand the birthday summon was in there and various other things that kind of have an effect on this. But slowing it down a couple heroes will likely bring your power creep back to where you want it to be. Okay, so that's going to be the power creep. And remember, I will be tracking this each month. It's fun to keep an eye on it. But there is plenty of other things for us to cover in this video. So let's go ahead and move on to our next section. All right, and on to our next section. Let's go ahead and get into this. We are talking about the birthday celebration. 9 years, you and I, one journey. That is what Empires and Puzzles wanted to focus on for this particular birthday celebration. And I think it's a good idea. Like, I think the theme kind of fits, because this is going to be a collaboration of all of the players and the developers creating a game that has successfully made it 9 years. So that's really cool. I want to take a moment to talk about the event and sort of go over all the things that went on, what we thought of it all, that sort of thing. So we'll go ahead and we'll get things started. First things first, let's talk about the portal mechanics. These gimmick portals that come out 4 times a year, they are very fun in my opinion. I like the way they set them up. The bonus this time around, of course, is that if you pulled a 5-star, you were guaranteed to get a second 5-star. Which is pretty cool, right? It was a way to stack quite a few 5-stars if you were lucky with your pulls. In fact, I saw a couple of people do 30 pulls where they pulled like 4 to 5 original 5-stars and get 4 to 5 more, and then all of a sudden you have like 8 to 10 5-stars from 130 pull, and that's just bonkers, right? But it's a lot of fun and it's interesting. The other important thing to remember is that this one allowed you to select your featured heroes, and there was a very nice list of potential featured heroes this time around. And for those of you who do a lot of pulling, I think it was a great portal for you specifically, because of course you could select the heroes that you had been hunting for and make them featured, and then just pull, right? Just pull until you got what you selected, and then remove that from your featured list, put the next one in that you were still searching for, and just keep pulling. And for those of you that were big spenders on this, I saw quite a few flip through and end up getting 5 or 6 different things that you had been hunting for from some of your poll videos. And I'm sure that was very satisfying and fulfilling for our heavier spenders. Now, for those that were not heavy spenders and just kind of took their chances on things, I'll say this, the additional 5-star polls were a fun way to go too, because it really did give you an opportunity to, one, select the ones that you want from your roster out of the list, which was very fun, but then two, to get that extra bonus. I, for one, am not a particularly large spender in this game. I do save for some of these portals. I myself did 3 10 pulls, and then probably maybe 4 or 5 single pulls throughout the week. That was what I had allotted and was able to save up for to effectively do this. I did also make sure that I ended the event with quite a few gems, because I was worried they would do a gem summon challenge fairly quickly after this event, and I wanted to be able to participate in that as well. So I didn't burn all of my gems, but I did do a fair amount. Now, that being said, I was lucky enough to pull 5 stars twice out of all of those pulls. So what did that mean? It means I walked away with 4 or 5 stars from this particular portal, and some of them were great and some of them were kind of meh. So, I think that's just the way it goes. When you can get heroes that are up to 2 years old, there's no guarantee that you're going to get the cream of the crop out of here, but it was certainly interesting. So, that being said, let's go ahead and talk about the new family that they introduced here as well. Okay, here we go. We have ourselves these new adventurous rodents. So, this time around, I think it's interesting that they introduced this family here. In fact, going through it, I did do review videos for these. You're welcome to look at them more specifically. I also did a whole birthday portal review video, so it's easy to find my content on that. But I will say that this particular family reminds me very much of the Wildcat family, which was also released for the previous year in the birthday portal. So I guess it makes sense in a way to track that they would be coming out at the same time. I also want to point out that I feel like this particular family, these adventurous rodents, are not necessarily one of the stronger featured families that have been released in these portals, but they were released at a 1% pull rate, right? So with that in mind, that's up to 5 times more than we saw like the Shady Scoundrels at. I do believe they were released at 0.2. So like you had a much higher chance to get the featured family that's new and introduced in this portal. But I also think that makes sense why they weren't necessarily as significantly powerful as some of the other new mechanics that were entered in the game. We did get 2 of them. We got ourselves with Embertail here, this little red fire mouse, and Sprout Whisker. I was lucky enough that one of the 4 or 5 stars I pulled out of this event was Embertail, so I will be leveling him up and working to see how this new family plays out in that way. But I just don't know if these guys are going to be super significant for the long run of things. I fully expect them to be good new heroes that will work in my roster for X amount of time. But like by the time we get to the birthday portal next year, will I still consider these particular characters to be significant for my roster? I'm not sure. I'm not sure if they do anything that's going to help them stand out to that level. But that is okay. They're still fun. They're still new. And I get the benefit of knowing when the Adventurer Rodents portal eventually does come out, they will get that free upgrade to match the CP of when they are released with new heroes. So it is nice to know that there will be an extra bit of longevity out of these heroes because I did pull them from a featured portal. There we go. All right, so there we have it, our new heroes. Let's get back to talking about the other things about this portal worth mentioning. This isn't really about the portal, but I am going to point out that we did a lot of content creation for this particular birthday as well. Empires and Puzzles has been reaching out and creating the content creator group within their outreach program, which is great for us as content creators to be able to pair with them. They did offer us all 50 codes to hand out for this particular event that were very significant codes. I mean, they gave out 999 gems. I think it was 3 colorless trainer heroes and then a tomb of golden emblems. And honestly, when you think about that, that's some very valuable loot to get your hands on. It was cool that they gave out these codes to quite a few content creators. In fact, I'm not even sure what the final count was, but it was far more than I was expecting them to do. So that's cool too. And I did run my own contest throughout the whole week. I did pick my winners and so on and so forth. Believe it or not everyone actually claimed their prizes, which was fine. It left me with some leftover codes, which comes into play. We'll talk about that in a moment. Those leftover codes are going to be given away in this video, and I will get into that at the end of this particular section. But I just want to point out that this was a great opportunity for people to be introduced to content creators across the board. One of the things I've learned about the content creation partnership with Empires and Puzzles is that there were a lot more content creators out there than I was aware of. And getting to know them has been a fun process. And I really appreciate the fact that it is not a cutthroat industry, if you will. Everyone seems to be very kind about sharing knowledge and tips and tricks to help create better content and move forward. So it's, I'm thankful for that. And I do think it will be helpful to sort of tap into their knowledge base so that I can make better content creation moving forward as well. So that being said, I guess it gets us to the most important part about this, and that will be, how am I giving away these final codes? And that is an excellent question. So let's get into it here. I'm not going to make this overly complicated. I didn't make my last ones overly complicated either. I really am just interested in hearing some comments about what we think about longer form content for Empires and Puzzles. Like, you can say, hey, I don't really have time to consume a longer podcast style thing. That's not for me. Or you can say, hey, this is cool. I've been looking forward to this kind of thing. Or whatever the case may be. I'm just trying to get some general feedback from the audience. I'm still going to make my state of the games. This isn't like should I stop doing it? More as I'm curious what kind of engagement level it can get from all of you. So really, that's all you have to do is comment on this post how you feel about longer form content creation for Empires and Puzzles. Would it be something that you listen to, or would it just not be what you're looking for? So that's all you have to do. And if you do comment, you will be entered to win. I'm going to give this one probably, let's just say 5 days for entries. And then I will pick the winner at the end of the 5-day entry point. Only because I don't think as many people immediately see this video as some other things. So I'll let it pass around for a couple days, and then I will pick the winners, and I will contact you very similar to how I did my contest before. So just keep that in mind. There will be a 5-day delay, but I will be picking the winners, and then I will reach out to you by replying to your comment that you have won, and there will be instructions on how to contact me. It seems like it was very effective through email, but I'm happy to do Line and Discord as well. Okay, so there we have it. That will be how you enter to win these remaining codes. Let's go ahead and move on to our next section. Okay, so in this particular section, let's take a moment to talk about the fact that a brand new family has entered its way into the game. And this is going to be the Ronin family. So Ninja Tower did return to Empires and Puzzles, and it brought us this new family, and unfortunately what it did not bring us is costumes. I don't particularly know why we didn't get costumes for the older ninjas like we did with the older Magic Tower heroes, but as of this point, it doesn't look like Empires and Puzzles seems like that's particularly a concern of theirs, so maybe we just won't see that this time around. But what we did end up getting was this new family, the Ronins, so let's get into them. What are they all about? What have we learned from the first release of new heroes in this portal? Well, we learned that they decided to stick with the 3-tiered system. I wasn't sure if that was going to be a thing, because the thing about the 3-tiered system is it makes them incredibly difficult heroes to use on defense, because you're never going to know what tier special the computer's going to decide to consider using. And so they are more of a liability on defense than they are a help, and so it pretty much relegates them into only being offensive heroes. Although the ninjas can be incredibly useful offensive heroes, that's their niche, and that's usually where you see them. So in this particular case, I was kind of hoping that the new Ronin family might be more similar to like the Magic Carpet family that came out that didn't function on a tiered system, but that's not what we got. So instead, let's talk about what we did get. In this first 3-tiered system, we have some interesting stuff that was released. This red guy here on the left, he was designed to be a growth machine. So he is all about adding stats to your team. His attack is somewhat less functional than I would like it to be because it exists on that mechanic of doing the chain effect. not exactly super exciting. But if you get this guy all the way up to his final tier, he is going to give a growth of 600 attack and defense to your team. 600 of each stat is absolutely massive for your entire team. Let's say you have all 5 guys up, right? Just do the math. That's 3,000 attack, 3,000 defense, a total of 6,000 additional stats you just added across the board of your side of the field. So, like, I understand the concept behind him, but he's a long game sort of approach to winning, where you can overpower them with just massive amounts of stats, but you need to stay alive long enough to do so. It's a little more complicated and certainly less direct than his counterpart who was released, this Purple Ninja. She is an offender in one of these multiple hit scenarios. So the way that she works is she's going to do additional hits for each tier that she gets up to. And the final tier is absolutely bonkers. The final tier goes off up to 11 times for, so like, I remember when this character released, and you could go back and look at my video, and I think the question that I asked was like, when are we getting to the point where we're just doing too many hits in one turn, right? Like, look, I think it's cool, and it's cool if it's on your side, right? If you are the one doing the 11 hits, it's probably incredibly entertaining for you. If you're on the receiving side of the 11 hits, most likely not as much fun. I'm just going to throw that out there. So yeah, very interesting heroes. I am curious to see what they do with the next Ninja Tower that comes out. And I mean, there isn't really much more to say about this. We're all familiar with how the towers work and all of this. I just wanted to touch on this real quick so everyone is aware of the new family, what these guys did, how there weren't new costumes, all that fun jazz. But let's go ahead and move on to our next topic, and we'll go from there. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk about the Gem Challenge Summon that they did this month as well. And that is going to be a 20 gem pull challenge. And the rewards for the first time ever included 5-star troops. This was something that I wasn't really sure they were going to attempt to accomplish. I mean, I understand the reality of it. I don't necessarily think that this is a bad idea. And I'll explain why. Look, here's the thing. 5-star heroes are obviously what I consider to be the cream of the crop. It is what I think gem summon challenges should aspire to be. Because when you walk away with a 5-star hero, it's a significant addition to your roster in most cases, and something that you can utilize in many aspects of the game. I do feel like troops are similar in that aspect, because 5-star troops are actually a very important part of this game. I will say that I have significantly more success when I am effectively using 5-star troops to strengthen my team in raiding and in wars, etc. So, with that in mind, I do think this is kind of cool, but what makes it challenging, and what I think we have to consider as to whether or not it's worth investing in this challenge, is that you have zero control over what you're going to pull out of this gem challenge pull, right? But that is sort of the weird coincidence of 5-star troops, because in reality, within this game, we have complete control over what 5-star troops we want to create. So you have the potential through the conversion process that exists within the game once every 30 days, you can make a plan and you can create whatever 5-star, troop it is that you need to fit your roster in the ideal way. So throwing a monkey wrench into that system by creating a randomized reward system of a possibility of something new is sort of a strange approach, and I'm not sure that I love it. And that's not to say that even these were the troops that you needed, right? Like, you had no control over which troops were selected. There were only 5. It's just a very interesting approach to something that I think is already a pretty controlled system. So to implement chaos into a controlled system does not seem like an effective way of creating incentive, I guess you can say. So when we did do the review of this when it came up, I told people that this was not one that I recommend. And I said, look, here's the reality. If you're a big spender in this game and you're already going to do 10 pulls anyways, then yes, do this. Because in reality, you are already going to do the polls. So why not take something free on top of the polls you were already going to do, right? But there is a large community of free-to-play or cheap-to-play players that have to decide whether going in on these challenges is worth their hard-earned gems. This time, I just didn't necessarily see the value there. I would still recommend that people hold out and wait for the 5-star hero challenge pulls and go from there, because in reality, you always had a chance to get something a little bit less exciting too, and just like these colorless trainer troops, or 7 of the pulls. So, like, it's just an interesting approach, but I don't want them creating more variety in the gem challenge pulls as much as I would like them to, gem challenge summon pulls, as much as I would like them to go back to the 5 stars and make it an interesting approach for people to get a guaranteed 5-star. Like, I'd like to see a challenge like that exist at least once a month. Okay, like at least once a month for a guaranteed 5-star hero that you can throw down on, and who knows, you can rotate it. Maybe some months you do 30 pulls, some months you do 20 pulls, some months you do 10 and give people possible rewards. But like in reality, just get us back to the 5-star hero challenge pulls, if you would, please. Okay, so that's really all I want to say about this one, and let's go ahead and move on to our next topic. Okay, so let's go into the quality of life section for this month. This is where we're going to be talking about a few things that are going on in our day-to-day lives, and just kind of go over some of our pros and cons of our current existence within Empires and Puzzles. So to start things out, I decided to take a moment to talk about our current mimic rotation. Right now, I think we're all pretty aware that the mimics that are coming out in the Secret Summon are going to be troop mimics. There's been a lot of debate about whether or not these troop mimics are as exciting as some of the previous ones, and I understand that debate, and I think that it's valid to ask that question. The thing about the troop mimics is that they are providing troops to help level, but they really didn't allow there to be a lot of top-end loot out of them. And what do I mean by that? Well, I mean, with Master Emblems, that was a good loot to get at the top end, right? With the Aether Mimics, you could get 5-star Aethers or Alpha Aethers. Great thing to get from them as well. But these troop mimics seem to have a much lower ceiling, because they didn't even allow these things to drop 4-star troops, let alone 5-star troops. Now, I know what you're saying. You're saying it is absolutely bonkers to think that we would let them drop 5-star troops. But to that, I answer, is it bonkers? Like, you can set the loot limits to whatever you want it to be. You could make it 0.00001%, whatever the case may be. The point is, like, having the possibility of getting some top-end loot of real excitement, I think, is what makes the mimics as entertaining as they are, and adds a little benefit to your regular farming experience. So I think the fact that these current troop mimics can only give you 1, 2, or 3-star troop feeders, and they are limited by the color that you get. Now, granted, it does give you some colorless trainers that you can feed, but the point is the majority of them are going to be limited to whatever color it is. And since you can't feed off-color troops to other troops, it is much more limiting than any of the mimics we've seen previously. So I understand people's frustration with that, and I think that it's the reason why this particular mimic will not be as popular or chased as much as some of the others. That being said, I have heard some rumors about the next type of mimic that will be available to us all, and it is going to be a food crate mimic. So that's correct. This one's going to drop random food crates, probably all the way up to the 500k bundles at a low chance, right? But probably lower ones for the most part. I am a little bit more excited about that. I feel like those types of resources are something that you always need. And having mimics that you can swap in when you're low on that type of resource is definitely something that's good for us to have, and we can mix and match mimics to what we need at any given moment. So with the introduction of these food crate mimics, we can only assume there will also at some point be iron crate mimics and stuff like that. So just understand that mimics aren't going anywhere, right? They're just going to be a thing for the foreseeable future. It's just a question of what type of mimic comes next. Okay, so I think that covers our talk on the mimics at the moment. Let's hop into the Hero Coach recap. We just recently had the Hero Coach, and as always, the advice that I give for Hero Coach remains the same. With a 2-year cutoff timer to max out a hero, you're not getting something very significant if you go with a hero that's 2 years older or more. So my advice has always been to go with a hero that you have a costume already collected for. This will allow you to have a much more viable and much more reasonably statted hero able to be leveled up at a much more reasonable rate. You can skip your colored Aethers, you can skip your Alpha Aethers. It's just a much better idea to pick a costumed hero. And that is really what I wanted to touch on here. Yes, that's very logically true, but it was not the spirit of what the hero coach was meant to be originally. The hero coach was meant to reach into your inventory and find that hero that you maybe didn't get to finish leveling, dust it off, and give it a chance, right? It was meant for you to reach deep into your roster and find that gem. The problem is 2 years old is just too old. They're not really gems anymore, right? It's just not realistic to do that. So as always, I'm going to recommend here that we dial back the limitation timer. So instead of being 2 years, maybe you dial it back to 18 months or even 1 year. I think 1 year is probably the ideal time frame. Make sure they're at least 1 year old, and then you can level them up to max and still have them be a viable hero. And this will at least give some competition to those brand new costumed heroes that you picked up instead. So, I mean, I think it's much more in line with the spirit of what they were trying to do with Hero Coach originally, and I hope they consider that moving forward. All right, next up, we have Titan Loot Woes. I did promise everyone that I am going to continue to harp on this until we see some change. Because in reality, the Titan Loot was originally released with these 16-star Titans as being pretty good. I remember getting 5-star colored Aethers at a much higher clip than I was ever getting them before from killing Titans, and I remember the Titan bounties were paying out fairly regularly as well. Well, at some point, without telling us, they did a silent nerf to this loot, right? They basically dialed all of the Titan bounty drop rates down a bit, and you can argue that maybe they didn't dial it down, but they added more loot in there to dilute the chance of getting the better items. Either way, that's still what I would consider to be a silent nerf, right? Because right now, the Titan loot is pretty pitiful. It's definitely not worth the amount of items that we have to put into doing significant damage to each one of these things. So it's a net resource loss every day. There's not really much purpose to doing Titans other than the fact that the game kind of drives you in that direction. Your alliance needs your help, so you help them, right? But is it a positive or is it a chore? And I think this is the problem, is I think it falls more under the category of chore than actually something that's an enjoyable part of the game. And the real way that you can fix this is by making the loot better, right? If you make the loot more desirable, then you are going to turn this from a chore into a hopeful challenge of getting something good. But right now it's just turned too low. Like, I kill Titans all month long. I maybe expect to get something from a bounty like once a month. And sometimes I don't even think I get it like once a month. It's really, really rough. So they need to revisit the loot tables, figure out what percentage rates drops should be at, because currently I definitely believe it's too low. All right, so that's enough of that. I talk about this, and I will continue to talk about this, but I think it's important, and hopefully maybe some people from SG will listen to this. As I'm getting more popular as a content creator, my voice is going further. I know you guys, most of you are probably pretty aware that I was a featured content creator for the birthday celebration, and a lot of you learned of my existence because of that. Understand that was a very successful growth margin for me. I think I grew by a 66% margin there. So that was really quite impressive growth, and it is being tracked by SG. They have their own little charts up, and that's how I know where my growth numbers were. They tracked it, not me. But the point is, like, it's got their attention, and the more I can continue to captivate their attention, the louder my voice might be towards affecting positive change for us all. So just understand that this requires all of us to work together, because I do need your help too. If I'm not effectively working out as a content creator, my voice and my influence will diminish instead of increase. And really, like, I'm more than happy to take suggestions from the audience on things that you'd like me to escalate as well. So keep that in mind. You're welcome to put your input into the comments of these videos, and I will see what I can do if I think it also makes sense to escalate that as well. Okay, so that's it for Titan Loot Woes. Last but not least, let's talk about the balance change buffs that went into play in this past month. Just one sec. Okay, so here we go. What did we get that was major changes in this last month? Well, they definitely upgraded the Construct family. So at first, the construct minion core just was not performing the way it needed to, and I will admit I was not overly impressed with the minion core either. So they decided they needed some buffs in there. And what kind of buffs did they get? Well, now these minions will recover 5% health at the end of each turn, as long as those minions are up for whoever has the minion. And also, each time those minions attack, they will be doing negative 50 attack in Wither. So this Wither is permanent effects, right? So you're constantly just kind of chopping down the strength of your opponents with these construct minions, and I think this is making them a much more interesting family to consider working with than before, when the minion core didn't do any of this extra stuff. So then we also got a buff to stylish costumes. The stylish passive skill can now also replace damage over time effects with heal over time effects. This was a much needed change, because when they first came out, you can even go back to look at the video I did about what are these stylish costumes all about. I pointed out the glaring hole in their defensive situation was the fact that they did not affect dots in any way whatsoever. So dot damage was going to go through on these stylish costumes and just absolutely land and cause real problems for these heroes. And I said to myself, I'm like, I don't think this is a good idea, because in reality, it makes me feel like both the glass and the tune options are still better overall. And I will most likely take the additional stats from getting one of these stylish costumes, but just use one of the older costumes as being ultimately better. They realized this might be how it's playing out too, I think, because they did add this to make sure that there is some sort of dot coverage within this ability to flip things, and it will definitely make them a much more viable costume to compete with tune and glass options, so that's cool. Then we also had a buff to the Institute and Forsaken families. Passive skill added minion corruption. So at the end of each turn, enemies with Insanity have a chance to have their minions turn into fiends. This affects all legendary heroes of both families, and corresponding status effects removed from Professor... Oh, so basically remove that from Professor Morster and Demolur, who were originally the heroes who had that. And then also they did one important change to the Astral Demon family as well. And this is going to be a change. Before, previously, they had a chance to full cleanse themselves only upon taking damage from special skills, but now they're switching it over to that 60-85% chance to cleanse one status ailment from all allies when receiving special skill damage, which is basically just recycling the Beowulf family bonus again, but in reality, Beowulf portal's ending, and it really was a useful effect. So I guess they figured, let's run it back and do the same thing again with these Astral Demons, because people really liked it and we can keep it relevant and fresh in the game. So there you have it. That kind of covered the most important changes that we needed to address so that you can all stay up to date with what to expect from heroes out there. And I think that's enough for this particular section. So let's wrap this up and move on to the next. All right, so now let's go ahead and get into the meta changes for this month. And let's start out by just saying, I don't think a lot has happened yet for this month's changes in the meta, but I do want to go over a few things at the end of this to be on the lookout, because I do believe that we are going to end up seeing that in the next month, so I want everyone prepared for it. But just to start things out, what are we still seeing in the meta? Right now we're seeing a lot of the Wildcats team still. Usually it's a Wildcats, Resurrector, sometimes even two Resurrectors and Wildcats. Like, it's just very much a bounce around with resurrection, so that, like, even if you kill me, I'm back kind of deal. So, like, that's gonna be there, and it's gonna be there for quite some time. So I don't expect that to go anywhere. The other thing that you're gonna see constantly is going to be the Temple heroes with their absolutely explosive damage. Usted, Banga, both are still strong enough that they basically wipe out an entire team when they go off. It's very hard to recover from that special being cast. So I fully expect you to still see a ton of those teams, and even more so, I've noticed, it is Temple Heroes paired with Salome. And I think this is mostly because, like, they almost kill everyone, so I think they want Salome in there lowering everyone's max health so that you are actually in one-shottable range from those heroes, even if you are fully topped off. So, those will be a thing. Just expect to see Temple Heroes, lots of Salome mixed in there with them. All right, and then the one thing that's new that I want to talk about that I have started seeing is a new trend towards multiple hit heroes. I think we're all aware of what this is. Thaffer used to be the king of this for a while, where you just had like a whole bunch of hits coming at you and it's really hard to deal with. Well, they kind of cranked that up to 11 when it comes to what they're doing with these multiple hits. And it's funny that I say crank it up to 11 because the max offender here is actually doing 11 hits in one turn. So we'll go into that. But the two that are currently the king of this new multi-hit format is going to be the Purple Three Kingdoms that came out. He is a fighter. I'm trying to remember his name, but either way, he hits 9 times, and those additional hits are lower from the initial one, but because he is a Three Kingdoms outlaw, he's got that crit chance, and when they crit, they're doing 50% more damage and reducing max health. So he is a monster hitting 9 times in one swing. Very hard to deal with, especially if you don't have a full team up, because those 9 hits are going to get focus fired down on the number of targets you have remaining. Absolutely brutal. And then we also have a new purple Ronin that came out this last month. She is a little bit more difficult to function correctly because you do have to get her up multiple tiers. So yes, it's devastating the amount of damage she's going to pump out if she hits 11 times for 300% some odd each hit. But it's going to take her a minute to get up there. So you have time to find a way to handle her before she goes off. But if you ignore her and you allow her to power all the way up and then hit 11 times in one turn, I wish you the best of luck at the end of that, because you're probably dead. Like, it's just, you're wiped out. Well, how do you come back from that? So just keep that in mind. These multiple hit heroes are just a menace right now, and they are going to be hitting the scene as people are finishing leveling up the ones that they have pulled. And one of them was just featured in this birthday event, the Three Kingdoms Purple. So I fully expect there to be a lot more of those popping into the maxed out meta. All right, now let's see. The next thing I wanted to go into was the Be on the Lookout. So Be on the Lookout is what I'm expecting to see in the next month from people. This is going to include 2 heroes that were released this month. The first of which is going to be the new blue slow healer that came out of the Temple Summon. Again, I apologize for not having her name right here, but I think you'll know who came out as a Temple Summon this time around. Anyway, the point is, she is a crazy old granny that is going to do a very reasonable amount of healing, but more importantly, what she's going to do is put an entire team into deep sleep. She's going to hit the other team. Everybody goes into deep sleep. You might be thinking to yourself, well, she's slow. That's really not that big a deal. I can handle it. Sure. But I want to point out that when you are forced into an opinion of who to handle first, let's say they have this really slow healer in there. Let's say they have a new stead. Let's say they have a Ronin that hits you 11 times, right? Like, who are you taking out first, right? You have to pick somebody. You have to focus down somebody. And since you are directing your attention to an individual, you are usually allowing the other ones that much longer to live. So I'm pointing out that if this granny goes off, she's not only going to do a significant amount of healing, but the damage and control that she puts out, like the increased damage of 80% taken from that deep sleep, but also making sure your heroes can't gain mana and can't do anything while in deep sleep, it's going to be a problem. And I think she's going to be a little bit more valuable than people will give her credit for it first. So be on the lookout for her. The next one to consider is the Dan Craig. He's the new green construct resurrector that came out from the Covenant portal. In fact, I think it's still up when I'm finishing this recording. This might be the last day of it, so it's going to wrap up really soon. But this resurrector is a monster, like an absolute monster. It's hard to understand the strength of it when you're first looking at this character. But once again, you're going to get a very reasonable heal out of this person. And it is operating at average speed, if I remember correctly. I'm like 90% sure it's average speed. So it's not even taking that long to get up to the point of casting that Resurrect. Maybe you say to yourself, well, it's not that high, it's 25%. But based off the number of additional nature tiles on the field, we can get up to a 65% chance to res. And he returns them with 40% HP and then gives them debuff protection as well. So 40% HP doesn't seem like an impossible way to get them back down. It's a nice chunk, but they still seem a little vulnerable. I want to remind you, though, not to forget that these constructs are also dropping minions, okay? So he's going to give everyone a minion as well with up to 27% HP. So although he resurrected them to 40% health, and that seems achievable, remember they could possibly have a 27% HP minion health shield blocking them as well. So it's kind of more like a 67% health res. It's going to make things more challenging than you might think to get that character back down before they have a chance to heal again. As I did in my review video, I will point out that I'm pretty sure that Dan Craig, or however you want to say it, is going to replace all the Astrids that were out there in the field. So those people who love their Resurrectors, they're probably digging deep to get their hands on this new one, level it up. Astrid will kind of finally be put on the bench, and you'll see a lot of Chit Dan Craig teams, something like that, or Sable Dan Craig, or whatever the case may be. But like all those guys that love their double Resurrectors are just fiending for this guy. I 100% promise it. So like just be on the lookout for that as well. You know what? Honestly, I have to sneak in one more thing here. This was an unexpected development because I recorded this earlier today, this particular section anyways, but then they released a new hero this morning, and it was going to be a brand new Wildcat. And honestly, we need to include this in the Be on the Lookout section, because in reality, this new Wildcat I think is very significant. And it's the new Red Ranger Wildcat under the name Charlene, I believe it is. Charlene, anyway, the point is, this Red Wildcat is going to be a very fast Wildcat, so very easy to go off. The damage it does might be a smaller sniper hit with a clawing damage effect, but more importantly, what it also does is it puts a debuff down that is going to make that target take 70% of the damage the rest of the heroes take for the next 4 turns. This type of mechanic has only existed on a few heroes in the game previous to this, and anytime it does exist, it is an absolutely devastating effect to make sure that someone dies. Because the reality is, when you're sharing damage with the rest of the team like that, it really allows you to focus fire a lot more damage onto one. So, operating it very fast, this is going to be significant because you can easily get these tiles in to get this guy off, and then follow up right afterwards with a hit all from one of your other characters, and that hit all is going to then also do 70% of what all the other heroes in the team took to the target that just got hit with that debuff. So in reality, I think this Red Wildcat is going to absolutely be an amazing way to ensure you can destroy your opponents. And operating it very fast, it's going to be hard to manage this, because even if you're able to dispel the effect, how long before that Wildcat goes off again at very fast? And here's the thing. Normally with a hero like this, I'd be like, I need to remove that guy immediately and just take him out so that I don't have to worry about this effect for the course of the fight. But with a Wildcat, that's not an option that's easily on the table, because even if you focus fire down the Wildcat, there's a very good chance that they're popping back up with 9 lives. And not just that, but they're going to pop back up with 80% mana, which means they're almost ready to fire because it's very fast. So if a stray tile hits him, he's firing off again. Like, this is an incredibly devastating combination, I think, because even if you try to remove this effect as fast as possible, you're not removing it. You're probably just manning him up so that it goes off faster. Like, I don't know how people are going to handle managing this guy very well. And that's why I said be on the lookout for him, because I guarantee you people are going to pull him. They're going to level him quickly, and we are going to see this guy in this following month being a headache for all of us. Now, maybe there is a way that he can be managed well, but off the top of my head, I'm not necessarily seeing it. So just be wary of that. Well, okay, so we're going to wrap this up. We're going to move on to the final section of the state of the game, and let's go ahead and do that now. Okay, and congratulations everyone, we have made it to the final section of this particular state of the game. And this is where we're going to take a moment and to go over the April 2026 calendar so we can kind of know what to expect and what is going to be coming up, how to utilize our limited resources in a way that's going to maximize the potential for our particular roster, etc. I always believe in a resource finite game like this one, it's wise to be informed so you can make the best decisions for yourself. So let's go ahead and get right into it, right? So we'll start up here at the beginning of the month. Of course, Springville is going on. That started the last couple days of last month, but we are going to be in Springville all the way up through almost the end of this month. It looks like it cuts off at the Sunday the 27th. So we are going to have a lot of Springvale opportunities. And with that will, of course, I'm assuming, come a new raid brawl, where we have an opportunity to earn 15 epic hero tokens again. Worth noting, Springvale is one of those ones where the heroes, they all kind of come with a downside, so just keep that in mind. This might be one of those situations where you may want to save your epic hero tokens for the next seasonal portal, where the heroes don't come with a downside, but I will let you make your own decisions on that, of course. And there probably will be at least a mimic or two up during this time period, so maybe you're hunting for the mimic and you want to use them then. That makes sense as well. But I don't necessarily think Springvale heroes are the best options in the game. All right, now, starting on Thursday the 2nd, it looks like the Vigilant Vegetables shall return. I fully expect there to be a brand new annoying vegetable for us to deal with. I am curious what the mechanic is going to be for this new vegetable that comes out. I have been on the hunt for a vegetable myself. I haven't been able to get my hands on one. I will, of course, put some effort into it this time around again, but no guarantees, right? So let's keep moving on. All right, next up, it looks like on Saturday, we have the Astral Plane starting, which will, of course, bring us some more Astral Demon fun. The Astral Demons are, quite frankly, just incredibly well-rounded, and I think it's a good portal to hopefully pull a 5-star out of. The pull odds are just tragic, though, so just be careful if you're going to go fishing in that portal. Now, we also, on Monday the 6th, get the Ninja Tower return. This is the second Ninja Tower since the release of the Ronin family. So we will, of course, be getting a new Ronin hero to take a look at. I am curious if we're going to see ninja costumes at all. I know a lot of people said we didn't see them at the release of the Ninja Tower last month, so they're just not coming. And look, maybe you're right, okay? Maybe that is an accurate statement, but I will say this. There's always the possibility that they could change their mind and put some ninja costumes out. Is that a benefit for us or a hindrance? I don't know. A lot of people have some older ninjas they'd like to see relevant again. I wasn't around at the original Ninja Tower days, so for me, it would all be new anyways. So I do like the idea of some of these older heroes getting costumes and kind of going from there. All right, moving on. Let's see what else we got here. So Ninja Tower, Springvale, Astral Plane, Costume Chamber. Costume Chamber comes around the 10th. So on the 10th of... Friday the 10th, we're going to get Costume Chamber. Now, this is important to point out because this is the normal Costume Chamber that we are very familiar with, but next month starts the Charming Costume Chamber. I wanted to make sure I knew which one we're talking about here. This will be the regular one from Friday the 10th through, looks like, Tuesday, the 14th. Okay. Then we also get a early War of Three Kingdoms that's starting back here on Saturday the 11th. It's kind of strange to see it so early in the month considering we are dealing with War of Three Kingdoms right now. So there's only going to be about a 2-week down period between wars at this point. So I'm curious why they bumped that up so high, but whatever, it's fine. There's our War of Three Kingdoms there, and that will go all the way through the following week to the 16th. Then we also have a Shadows of the Deep portal coming in on Tuesday the 14th. So all of you who love your Insanity heroes, be excited for that. I could take or leave the Shadow portal, but it does exist, so we're rolling with it. All right. Then we also have on Thursday the 16th, the Brave and the Beautiful event returns. Look, say what you want about this. I've heard some mixed reviews on the Beauty and the Beast drop and the fact that they sort of re-up the Three Musketeers revamp up with it. I'm not saying theme-wise it's 100% on point, but I will say this. I have enjoyed the Beauty and the Beast heroes quite a bit, and I am a fan of the Musketeers and think they were very deserving of costumes. So with that in mind, however they decide to wrap that up and represent it to us, kudos to them. And quite frankly, if you haven't gotten your hands on a Beauty and the Beast character for your roster, you probably want one because they are such an amazing counter to the Wildcats, which are all over the meta right now. I think everyone would benefit from having at least one or two of those heroes in their roster to work with. So awesome there. All right, then we also get a Dragon Cave on Friday the 17th, and the Visiting Outfitter returns much earlier in the month than I was expecting. So it's going to get here on Saturday the 18th. This is a bit of a sore subject for me because I had every intention in April of getting Medea's costume from the Visiting Outfitter. Medea, I have pulled her base. I was never able to get her costume. So she's been sitting on the sidelines waiting for this opportunity to, me to grab that costume from the costume changer and go. But she is not eligible until April 21st. And with the Visiting Costumer portal coming on the 18th, she is going to miss that window, and I'm going to have to wait 3 additional months to get that costume. It's not the end of the world, but it is incredibly disappointing, especially considering I'm used to these sort of portals, whether it be the hero coach or the, soul exchange or visiting outfitter. I usually see them in the last week, so I thought I'd be safe, but they threw me a curveball. They bumped it up to the 18th and totally derailed all of my plans. Hopefully that's not the same for you. There are a lot of new costumes that were released. I hope you got a nice plan in place and you will be excited for it to come into play on the 18th. That's just not me. All right, moving on. We also have ourselves the Windfall Temple. Now, I want to point out that this means that the Windfall Temple should be in-game starting Tuesday the 21st. Now, you're saying, what is the Windfall Temple? Some of you may not know, so let me explain. This is the event that belongs to the Temple Heroes. I mean, that shouldn't have been too big of a stretch to kind of figure out, but yes, friggin' Usted and Banga and all of them, right? Like Chit, all of these guys, they have an event that belongs to them. They do. It's here. It's the Windfall Temple, and it should be in effect starting Tuesday the 21st. I do understand this to be a bit of a challenging event. People had mixed reviews from what I heard on the beta about whether or not they felt it was worth the time, energy, and effort. But for those of us who like a little bit of a challenge to our game, this should be more exciting than a typical event process that exists as they stand currently. Okay, now moving on, we are going to get ourselves all the way down to Friday the 24th, where we are having a contest of elements. So this contest of elements should be green nature. That's cool. Like, look, I do like the Contest of Elements portal. My biggest qualm with it is just that they make the featured heroes a 0.5% chance, which I just for the life of me can't figure out why. Because, look, all the other portals that exist at 0.5%, they come with like a double pull, right? But not the Super Elemental portal. Super Elemental portal, you get one hero at 0.5%. Like, what's the deal? Why is that a thing? I don't know, but I don't love it. And I think that they should consider revamping the odds on that particular portal. But that's just my 2 cents. All right, so that brings us to Saturday the 25th, which brings us the Charming Costume Chamber. Now, I know what you're thinking to yourself, like, what the heck is a Charming Costume Chamber? Well, that's a fair question. And from what I understand, is this is the costume chamber where they are going to start releasing costumes for Season 2 and possibly Season 3 heroes. I knew for sure it was definitely going to be Season 2 heroes, but then somebody threw some information at me who said they believed it was going to be Season 2 and 3 heroes, which will be released in here. Why is that significant? Well, one, Season 2 has fallen way behind the 8 ball. Like, even if you pull a Season 2 hero with its costume and max it all the way out, it only gets to like 1,200. It's pitiful, right? It really is. So like the reality is Season 2 is sat on the bench and really was meaningless for quite some time. Bringing them up to a more relevant stat marker will at least let Season 2 start being considered to be put into people's rosters once again. And Season 3 being added to that is fun too. There's a couple real nice heroes from Season 3 that people would love to get more relevant costumes for. And I will drop the little tidbit that would, of course, include Lord Loki, which happens to be one of the fan favorites across the entire game. So, can you imagine Lord Loki with more relevant stats? I think that would be a very popular character for people to get their hands on, and so I am hopeful that Season 3 will be included in this. Even if we don't see Loki right away, we know he's coming, and that will be a well-sought-after hero. Okay, so there you have it. I think we're wrapping things up here. Did they sneak anything else in? Looks like a bunch of portals end. And then, right at the end of the month on Wednesday the 29th, we are going to get a second Vigilant Vegetables portal for April. I mean, it's whatever. It's probably more of a March portal. I guess you can say it's right on the tail end, but it does technically overlap. So I'll have to keep that in mind, and when I do my labeled videos, when say the portal returns for the month of April, I'll have to remember it returns twice in April, and just keep that in mind. Okay, so then last but not least, the very last day on the 30th, another astral portal plane as well. So we'll get a second one of those technically for April as well. All right, so that does get us through the whole month. And listen, I do appreciate you all tuning in and sticking this out with me. The State of the Game is definitely a series that I enjoy, and yes, it can be a little bit long-winded, but it is meant to be enjoyed when you have that free time, whether it's like doing chores or you're at work or you're stuck in traffic or whatever the case may be. It's meant to help fill that space with something a little bit more entertaining than dead silence, right? Some people like listening to music, I get that, but some people like having sort of an opportunity to learn or gain some insight into something that they enjoy. And In this case, what I'm offering is my insight into Empires and Puzzles so that hopefully you can have as informed a month of play as you possibly can have. And then, of course, you can look forward to next month when I will be doing my next State of the Game. And it will be released, of course, on May 1st. So, that's exciting too. And I look forward to that. And if you did tune in, only because I did do the contest this month, and that's fair. Look, that's fair. I will take a moment to point out that the details for this contest, just in case you didn't actually listen to everything, is in the birthday section, the birthday review of this. So you're going to have to rewind up to there, listen to that birthday section, and that will give you a little bit more details about the contest, how I'm going to be doing the entries, when I'm going to be drawing, and how I give the rewards out. So go ahead and take a listen to that. I do appreciate you all. Thanks for tuning in, and we will see you next time.